Well, hello. It's been a few weeks since I last did a video. I had mentioned that I was going to stop for a little while because I no longer have my videographer. Some of you know, my wife Jacqueline is a videographer, but she's out of town. And so I haven't seen you for a little while. I still don't have a videographer, but I wanted to use Zoom and send a message out to you because I really have a concern about what's happening with the COVID-19 pandemic right now. Actually, it's gone from concern to alarm, and I'll tell you why in a few seconds. I would just mention that this evening I did have a meeting with the governor in which she met with a number of higher ed leaders to talk about her concerns and had some guidance as to what we should be doing moving forward, as well as the Michigan Economic Recovery Council, in which we review new data related to Michigan on a weekly basis. And both those meetings, which I just concluded, give me no comfort. So I have gone from concern to alarm. Factor into that Thanksgiving is coming up, and the tendency for people to get together, eat together. It is a very social time, and it's going to be hard keeping some level of social distance and wearing masks all the time. But that's exactly what we have to do. And so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. But before I do that, let's kind of change things up a little bit. Typically I talk about the pandemic first and some other things, and then end up with a book review. I'm going to start with the book review because I want to end with my thoughts related to the pandemic. The last book I read is a book called Pachinko by Min Lin Lee, I think was the author's name. I finished a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't read another one since with the election and everything else going on. It was just kind of a busy time for me. And I don't know if I really went into the reasons why I enjoyed this book, but I thought I would do that now. First of all, it's a historical novel. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that since I've been reading a lot of books since the pandemic has started, there's a certain pattern of which books I've enjoyed the most. And I have to say historical fictions are probably what I gravitate the most to. This is a historical fiction. It's set in both Korea and Japan, started off in Korea and ended in Japan. And it talks a lot about the Japanese occupation of Korea, and then how Koreans were treated in Japan, those Koreans who went to Japan, how they were treated. And, I've always had mixed feelings about Japan. In one sense, I love the country, I have a lot of respect for it. It is my mother's country. But I've also had mixed feelings because it's a closed society that is intolerant of diversity. But overwhelmingly, I guess I've had more of an idealized image or concept of Japan. I grew up watching samurai movies. I loved the whole sense of honor of the samurai. I have always admired the code of Bushido, which is the samurai code. Virtues such as courage, compassion, honor, self-control, etc. But I must admit that it was a bit discomforting to read this book and see how the Koreans were treated by the Japanese. I don't think it was a shining moment in the history of Japan. By the same token, the internment of Japanese Americans by us, the United States, during the early 1940s was a dark moment in our history also. So throughout the world, you have these issues of one group of people not treating another group well, and in some cases just abhorrently, as was done with the slavery in our country. And I think I like this book because it brought that out in a different context than what I've been used to seeing, which is more in the context of our country. But it also helped me to think a little bit more and reflect a little bit more on that part of my heritage, the Japanese part. My dad fought in the Korean War, and he became stationed in Japan after the Korean War ended. I think that was around 1950 or so. He met my mother, and then I was born shortly after that in 1953. I was born actually in a naval hospital in Yokohama. So it got me thinking a little bit about that. And that's part of the reason why I enjoyed the book so much. But even if you don't have that as part of your heritage, and you're not part Asian, I nonetheless think it's a very enjoyable book, and certainly it is a book that I think you'll gain a lot of history about. Oh, by the way, pachinko is kind of like a slot machine. I used to go to these pachinko parlors a lot when I was a little kid. I wasn't supposed to, but I always snuck in. And it's just a game, sort of like a pinball machine, where you get these little balls that you cash in for money. Okay, let's go on to COVID-19 now. Things are bad nationally, and it's bad statewide. If you listen to the news or read the news, you've got to know that. And it's getting bad locally, including at Wayne State. State hospitalization rates is doubled over the past 2 weeks. That's pretty alarming statistic. Some of you know that in Europe, things got pretty much out of hand. Europe is at least a few weeks ahead of us. And take a country like France, for example. They reached about a little over 800 cases per million a couple of weeks ago. And what was alarming about that is that the number of cases actually doubled over a 7-day period in the previous week. So that was about 3 weeks ago is when it was 400 or something, and then it went up to about 800 2 weeks ago. That's pretty alarming. But what I'm very concerned about is that if you superimpose the trajectory that France was on a few weeks before Michigan. So in other words, if you look at the early part of October for France in terms of their cases and how they were progressing, and look at the latter part of October, the beginning part of November for Michigan, the two lines superimpose almost exactly upon each other. So what that means is that absent any intervention, we could double the number of cases that we currently see in the state of Michigan in a matter of a week. So that's some real cause for alarm. Now, the good news is that most of Europe did put in some measures to close down at least parts of the economy, particularly the restaurants and bars and other social gathering venues. France certainly did that in most places. Masks are mandated. And what's been seen over the past week is that the cases have flattened. And in fact, in some parts of Europe, it's gone down. In some places, pretty significantly. So we know that it can be controlled. It can be mitigated, the spread. And so that's the good news. And so my message to you, which is I'm imploring you, is avoid restaurants, indoor restaurants, avoid bars, and not even just those public gathering places, even things as innocent seeming as just getting together with friends or even family members that you haven't been with in a long time. You have to be really careful. And I know that's asking a lot around Thanksgiving, but I'm telling you that that is the most likely way that you're going to either transmit the disease or get the disease yourself. Small gatherings really should be avoided and wear masks at all time. As I mentioned, I did have a meeting with the governor this evening, and she did come up with some guidelines, Department of Health and Human Services, some guidelines for colleges as Thanksgiving is coming up. And I've sent those guidelines to the Dean of Students and others at the university this evening, and they will be widely disseminated tomorrow. They're pretty strict and they're pretty aggressive. And I'm sure that when you first look at them, that's going to be your reaction. But I think that it's the right thing to do. And I want you to take this very, very seriously. One final point I'll make is that I mentioned things are getting bad, locally, including at Wayne State. We're not at or near even the trigger metrics that will cause us to shut down the university at this point right now. But there have been rises in basically all of the metrics that we follow over the past week. And if the current trajectory continues, we will trigger one or more of the metrics that we're following that is going to cause us to shut the university down sometime this semester. I mentioned a while back when I introduced the trigger metrics that we've already decided that we're going to shut the university down if these metrics are met. So that's not even going to be an argument there. It's just really an issue of how to do it. But it will need to be done. And I'm mentioning this not to frighten anyone or cause any alarm or cause anxiety on your part, but just that we do have some control, just to communicate that we do have some control, at least some control over whether we trigger these metrics or not. And it's a collective responsibility for all of us, the entire Wayne State community, to do everything we can to make sure that we don't trigger these metrics. Some things, we don't have a lot of control over, and it's going to be important that others in the community and throughout the state, as we go home for Thanksgiving, also do their part. But we should all do our part, and let's slow the spread of the COVID-19 virus. And enjoy Thanksgiving, but be safe. Be warrior safe. Thank you very much. And I'm not sure if I'm going to come back next week or not. If there's something important for me to communicate, I'll certainly do so. But if not, I'll wait for my videographer so I can get back to my weekly messages in a more professional setting. But this was important enough that I did want to communicate with you through this Zoom self video, as it were. Be safe. Bye.